Alright, so today I'm going to be making one of the best things on earth, fried chicken. Love fried chicken. It's the shit. It's what dreams are made of. So the first thing I'm going to get working on is my brine. There's a couple different ways people choose to brine their chicken. One can be a buttermilk brine. The other can be like a saltwater brine. The purpose of a brine is to make sure that the chicken stays nice and juicy and, sorry to say it, moist while it's crisping up in the fryer. So I'm going to get started with that. I'm going to use a buttermilk brine, and I don't usually buy buttermilk because it's kind of expensive. It's cheaper to just buy milk and make your own. So for every cup of milk you use, you're going to want to use 1 tablespoon of lemon juice or vinegar, and that is homemade buttermilk. So I'm just going to pour this in here until they're submerged and kind of guesstimate the amount that I'm pouring in. It's probably about a cup, so I'm going to go ahead and use a tablespoon of lemon juice. And then another thing I like to add to my brines sometimes is a little bit of hot sauce, because it just kind of adds a little bit of the flavors of the hot sauce, but not necessarily the heat. It depends on how much you use. I'm just going to use about a ½ teaspoon, and again, this is Valentina. It's a very, very mild hot sauce, so I'll use a ½ teaspoon of this. If you're using something like Frank's or a standard hot sauce, I would just go with a ½ teaspoon if you're just looking for flavor, but not really a heat. You don't have to use this if you don't want to, and if you're looking for heat, an actual hot sauce flavored bite when you bite into your fried chicken, you can use anywhere between a teaspoon of hot sauce to a couple teaspoons, just depending on how much heat you like. So I'm just going to use a ½ teaspoon of this, again, like I said, because it's so mild. It'll just give it a little extra flavor, and I really like the flavor of this hot sauce. I said in one of my other videos, it's kind of like a hybrid between a taco sauce and a hot sauce, in my opinion. It packs some good flavor, but it's not, it doesn't pack a lot of heat. So I just want a little touch of that flavor, and it's really not going to interfere with the flavors of a classic fried chicken or the flavor of the breading. So I'm just going to kind of mix this up a little bit. Make sure the hot sauce and the lemon juice is evenly incorporated in there. And I'm going to put this in the fridge to brine. I'm probably going to brine it for about I'll probably brine it for about an hour. You can do this for a minimum of a ½ hour if you want to, or up to an hour or 2 hours, but I'm just going to do about a standard hour. I'm going to do that. Put that in there. And then I'm going to move this stuff out of the way. And then I'm going to get working on my breading. So I don't know, when I make fried chicken, you can do a bunch of different combinations of seasoning. There's endless combinations. Honestly, I don't really have a set recipe. I just kind of go with a base, and then I add whatever seasonings or herbs I'm feeling that day. Just kind of whatever flavors I'm trying to bring out. But today I put together just a good base of seasonings that's going to give you a very classic, tasty fried chicken breading. So what I've got here is I've got a cup of flour. I'm only frying 2 bone-in skin-on chicken thighs, but this amount of flour will do well for 4. So if you're doing like 4 pieces of chicken, that includes drumsticks or breasts, a cup of flour should be good. If you're doing more than that, like you're feeding a big family and doing like 8 or 10, I would use 2 or 3 cups, and then just double or triple the amount of seasonings I'm putting in. And like I said, I don't always measure out my seasonings. I just kind of do it by sight. So I will state how much I'm putting in as I'm putting it in, and then I'll write all those measurements in the description box below the video. So the seasonings I'm using that are a good base for any fried chicken breading, I've got some garlic powder, onion powder, I've got some paprika, I've got some seasoned salt, black pepper. You could also use regular salt if you want. I just like the flavor of seasoned salt. I'm going to use a little bit of ground coriander. Coriander is a ground up seed from the cilantro plant, so it gives you kind of a nice, fresh, herby, almost a limey type hint. But I'm not going to use very much. It's also got a nice warm flavor to it. So I like this, especially when making chicken. Sometimes I'll put it in a chicken marinade or a chicken breading, and it just adds a little bit of warmth and a little bit of fresh herbiness. But you can just use the coriander if you want or not. It's not really a part of a base ingredient. I like to use a couple herbs sometimes too. Rosemary's really good, but today I'm using a little bit of oregano. And then something else I like to put in my fried chicken breading is a little bit of sugar. I think a little bit of sugar kind of offsets the salty and savory flavors of these spices and just of the chicken breading in general. It's not going to make it sweet. It's just going to kind of complement and bring out those flavors a little bit more. So I like to add a little bit of sugar. So I'm going to start with the garlic powder. And I've probably got about 2 teaspoons in here of garlic powder. And I'm going to do just about, I'd say between a teaspoon and a teaspoon and a half of onion powder. About a half a teaspoon of paprika. Next I'll do the salt. And that's about a teaspoon of seasoned salt. And then just a little bit of pepper. Probably about anywhere between a quarter teaspoon and a half a teaspoon. Probably more like a quarter. And then I'm going to put a little oregano in. I'm not going to put too much because oregano can be kind of strong, but I'm going to put about a quarter of a teaspoon of oregano. And another herb that really, like I said, really goes well with chicken is rosemary. Rosemary and chicken go together really well. And then I'm going to put just like a quarter of a teaspoon of coriander. Definitely no more than that. Okay. And then I'm just going to do a little bit of sugar, about a quarter teaspoon of sugar. And again, this will just kind of offset the salty and savoriness of the spices. And I think it just helps balance out the flavors really well. So I'm going to mix all this together. Oh, and the sugar doesn't hurt when it comes to frying the breading. Because, you know, sugar, when it gets warm, it kind of melts and caramelizes. So it's not going to hurt at all when it comes to helping that chicken crisp up. So that's what's up. But this is a pretty standard base for what I use for my fried chicken breading. And I love fried chicken because it's really easy to make at home. It comes together quick. The only thing you have to mess with is the fryer, but if you're not worried about, you know, if a fryer is kind of feels like it's a hassle or an inconvenience, I definitely understand that. But if you're not worried about messing with the fryer and it doesn't bother you, fried chicken's super easy to make at home. It's pretty inexpensive and it comes out really, really good. Alright, so I'm done mixing that up. Again, I'm going to let my chicken brine, and then I'm going to get my oil up to temperature, and then I will bread it and fry it and tell you about that process. Okay, so I took my chicken out of the buttermilk brine and I just covered it in the flour breading. My brain's not working. And I let those sit for about 10 minutes to let the coating kind of adhere so it doesn't burn up, like the flour doesn't burn off or fall off too easily in the oil. And also to let them kind of come up to room temperature so when you put it in the hot oil, the chicken meat doesn't seize up too much. And I'm going to fry these on about 320 for 15 minutes. I'm frying them a little lower than average because I'm going to, some people fry them for about 350, do it halfway through till the skin gets crispy, and then throw them in the oven to finish them off. I just like to do it all in the fryer, so I fry it lower. That ensures that the skin gets crispy, but it still cooks through evenly and fully cooks through. So I'm going to go ahead and drop these in. Hell yeah. Alright, so I'm going to let these go for 15 minutes. I'm also going to be moving them throughout, and I'll probably flip them about 4 times. And then when I'm done, I will show you how they turned out. Alright, so my chicken is out of the fryer. It's been resting for about 10 minutes just to make sure, again, meat continues cooking after you take it out of a fryer or an oven, so it's best to just let it set. And also, letting it set before you cut into it also ensures that all the juices and the moisture stays within the meat, because if you cut meat too soon, it'll kind of come out and then you'll end up with dry meat. So my chicken, let's see if I can give you a good look at it. It looks beautiful, it's crispy, it's tender, it's juicy. It is delicious. The breading is, like I said, a really good base breading for it. It's a very classic fried chicken taste. And the hot sauce just brings a very slight hint of flavor. Some people, if I wouldn't have told you that it was in there and you tried it, you wouldn't have even thought it was in there. But it adds a little flavor that just kind of is in the background doing its job. Nobody knows it's doing it, but it's there. So it's really good, and yeah, I gotta try it again. I gotta put that down. It's crispy, it's tender, it's juicy, very flavorful. The brining it keeps those juices in it. Frying it lower helps get that nice crispy breading crust while making sure that it cooks all the way through. And again, like I said, I did this at 320 for about 15 minutes, and I stirred them around constantly just to make sure that they're getting evenly cooked. And I also fried it in about 2 inches of oil, and I also left probably about 3 to 4 inches of oil. Just when you're frying chicken, it's going to bubble up quite a bit, so you want to do it in a big pot, and you want to fill it up at least a couple inches of the way and leaving enough room for the oil to bubble up when it needs to. So, came out great. It goes really well. I think I'm going to post this with my bacon hot sauce mac and cheese, because it goes really well with stuff like mac and cheese or a pasta salad. But it's easy. It's hopefully with the tips, if you want to try to do deep fried chicken, this will be easy and it'll come out really well for you. And goddamn, I just love this shit. That's good shit. Alright, I'm gonna have to give that away. So if you want to try to make fried chicken and you give this one a shot, I hope you enjoy.